Welcome to Autodesk Digital Builder Podcast. I am your host, Eric Thomas. Once again, I am coming to you live from Autodesk University, and we are in Nashville this year, which is incredibly exciting, aside from the humidity, but we won't talk about that today. Today, our conversation is going to be all about sustainability, what's really happening in the world. Joining me to tell that story today, I've got Joe Speicher, the Chief Sustainability Officer at Autodesk, and Allison Scott, the Director of Sustainability, Growth, and Engagement at Autodesk. Allie, I think every time I've had you on, your title has changed. And I have to point out again, you're responsible for us sitting up here since you gave me the green light to do this 5 years ago. So thank you for that. And thank you both for joining me today.
Very happy to be here, Eric, and very happy to join the conversation in yet another role, which is one of the joys of working at Autodesk and the expansiveness of what we do. And really excited to have the conversation started. And so happy to be joined by Joe.
Likewise. Thank you so much, Eric. This is wonderful. I've heard other executives and other customers talk about the value and excitement they get from coming here. I've been waiting for an invite and thrilled to be here.
Oh, I'm very glad that we could make it happen. Aside from the joys of Autodesk University, I want to get into the world of sustainability. And I feel like folks out there in the world have heard a lot of different things in recent weeks, months, in the last year or so, as far as where sustainability is headed, what the priority is, how people are feeling. And so, Joe, first question for you today, can you set the stage?
Yeah.
Like, what's happening? What are people doing? How does that contrast to what's happening in the news? Like, give me the lay of the land.
Yeah. Great question. And I feel as though this is just kind of like the standard setup for sustainability, given it's been such a wild ride. I think the headline, Eric, is that sustainability has moved from aspirational, kind of big pie in the sky, like feel good notions to operational. What are we doing? Let's get things done. Let's align on specific outcomes, right? You hear about it, I would say, in that kind of aspirational pie in the sky orientation, much less than you do. And now it's kind of like nuts and bolts type stuff. The vast majority of the world is moving inexorably towards a lower carbon future. There's a lot of data to suggest that. Last year alone, we spent over $2 trillion on the low carbon transition overall. We've got over 40 countries around the world who have put peak carbon emissions in their rearview mirror. And a lot of that is driven by global policy changes that require a lot of this, right? And so we're just seeing a lot of movement in the space, but it's kind of below the fold to a certain extent. And folks are doing the hard, gritty operational work to get it done. When looking forward, a lot of the interesting stuff that we see is around the advent of AI, or the evolution into AI. That's a big part of the discussion as well, because AI is extraordinary. It's also extraordinarily energy intensive. So lots of moving pieces, but for the most part, when I look at the data, I see very positive progress. When I look at the headlines, I see a lot of noise.
Yeah. I appreciate that baseline too, because it's easy to get confused and tripped up, especially since this is such a global conversation. I'm really encouraged to hear, like you said, 40 countries have really left that carbon emission number behind. Like there's a lot to be excited about and optimistic about right now. I think we're moving forward, and I appreciate you confirming that today.
Yeah, absolutely. And even in customer conversations that we're having on a day-to-day basis, it's not just about, how can we have sustainability be a brand promise, but how can we realize that promise with very actionable goals and with partnering with companies like Autodesk to make it real.
Yeah.
There was a recent study a couple years ago by Ernst & Young, EY, that said that companies that have a dedicated sustainability goal as part of their business strategy actually earn 1.8x more revenue than those that don't. The idea of it only being a brand promise or only just about reputation these days is actually gone away from the wayside. It is much more integrated into the way of working. And that's part of the conversations that we're having every day is how do we help, from an Autodesk perspective, make that real?
And I'm so grateful that folks are really moving into let's do something for real, because it is very easy to sit back and go, well, we want to be this level of rated, or this is what we want to talk about, and it looks great in the marketing materials. But I mean, as we start looking closer and closer at the life cycle of the buildings that we're creating and the operating costs and everything that's happening in the world, like this continues to increase in importance. It doesn't go away, even if we're making progress and solving some of these problems. But Allie, I'd love if you could go a little bit deeper. I think you're one of my favorite techno-optimists. And so this question is very directly and deliberately crafted for you. Can you tell me more about the role of technology in the next 5 to 10 years and how it relates to sustainability? Like, where are we going?
Yeah, absolutely. Sustainability or green in some cases, sustainability and digital go hand in hand. There is no longer a conversation around taking action where sustainability isn't about the data. And Joe has a wonderful turn of phrase if we say that sustainability is a data problem. And that could not be more true today. I mean, when we are trying to think about decarbonizing the built environment, we need to understand the role of decarbonization down to the detail level. So that means, how does that carbon data travel from early design stages and choices that you're making on the conceptual side, all the way down to detailed design, all the way down to the site and the choices that you're making and what kind of components you're buying and at what volume and where they're coming from, and then into building operations. That whole ecosystem, that whole life cycle is a data problem. And just like we saw on the main stage today with Andrew, demonstrating the way that the data is flowing from Forma into Revit and then into Takeoff and then into Tandem. I mean, that is the delivery of the vision that Autodesk has been talking about for a number of years. And now all we need to do is transpose that same concept to carbon data, and we're able to have a more connected ecosystem and a more connected story about how we deliver on sustainable outcomes. So for us, it's the same conversation we've been having in the built environment for the last 30 years. How do we have a more connected experience? How do we deliver on better outcomes together using technology? And in this case, it's the lens of sustainability. Yeah. And we happen to be focusing a lot on carbon right now because we do believe it's the root of a lot of our sustainable conversations and sustainable outcome needs. But it goes beyond carbon in the future as well, to things like biodiversity, to circularity, which is all about the reuse of materials. There's a lot of different use cases that we see a future for. And the role of technology is, for us, it's really all about the data, and Autodesk is right at the center of that.
And this doesn't happen by accident.
No, not at all.
There's so much intention behind
Absolutely.
all of these choices. And Joe, I'd love to hear if you have anything to add from what Ali shared here.
I mean, Ali, I think you said it brilliantly. To abstract up one level, and Ali said this, but historically speaking, I'll give a little bit of an example of how this has worked historically and what's possible in the future. So an engineering or architectural firm can design the most sustainable building on the planet. The moment that those plans go to construction docs, you lose a lot of data. Mm-hmm. And we know that what is designed is not what gets built, just from change orders alone, right? And then subsequently, when that contractor in handover gets the keys to the owner or operator, if they want to validate performance of that building, it requires a lot of time, energy, and spreadsheets to address that. And so what we saw today on main stage, coming at you from AU 2025, was that digital thread that connects conceptual design, detailed design, construction, and ultimately operations, right? And that's a necessary prerequisite to deliver more sustainable outcomes, because you can carry that data through and ensure that the decisions that you make early on, what gets designed is what gets built is performing as it should. Yep. It's very exciting. The end-to-end and interoperability of it are absolutely key.
I think part of the future too, Eric, that Joe and I have been sort of talking about and hearing directly from customers is, so imagine we now have this digital thread where carbon data and sustainability data is just part of the way that they're working. It doesn't become an afterthought. Rather, it becomes part of the process and more integrated into the day-to-day way of working. And that's the goal, right? We don't want it to be something that gets thrown over the fence and done in another spreadsheet or done with a team that is disconnected from the whole. Rather, we want that to be part of everybody's job, and also surface it up and make it easier.
I love that point so much, because the silos we've seen traditionally, yep. I have a lot of empathy for folks who are trying to navigate and manage this, because if you are in pre-con and you're handing something over to somebody who's actually out building and on site, your incentives and the things that you are rewarded on and told matter and care about are going to be so dramatically different. And so without an intentional baseline to make that movement of intention and thought and decisions and choices that were made all the way in the design moment when we sent out the RFP and said, this is what we want, until somebody's, pounding the nail and pouring the concrete, like, it's hard. And so it's exciting to hear that technology is this lens now that we're able to apply to further move this narrative forward in a way that feels real and doesn't feel like something that we're all just talking about because it's important, but folks might not feel like it's actionable in a way that we would very much like it to be. So, Joe, this actually leads into my next question for you. And you alluded to this earlier. So I want to talk about AI for a minute. And the sentiment we often hear, one of the negative ones, is the resources that it's consumed and the way that this is impacting the planet. And so it's an interesting lens to apply to sustainability. And so I would love it if you could just unpack that a little bit for me and help me understand, like, how do we balance the resources versus the benefit, and what are some of these big long-term benefits you're anticipating?
Yeah, great question. So to break it down a little bit, I think about it in two separate ways, right? There is the energy consumption and subsequent carbon emissions associated with the infrastructure necessary for AI, right? And basically what we're talking about there is data center infrastructure, cloud infrastructure, right? And what we're talking about today is the ability to decarbonize the built environment. That includes that kind of infrastructure, right? So that's one side of the equation. The other side of the equation is the application of AI inference, or the way that we are using these tools in our everyday lives, right? So to take the first bit, we have tools to decarbonize the cloud infrastructure necessary for AI, right? The numbers are mind-boggling from a growth perspective. The latest data, McKinsey just estimated that between now and 2030, the world will spend roughly $6.7 trillion on data center infrastructure.
Wow.
That is an astounding number. And we have the tools to decarbonize that to a significant degree, which is really exciting, right? So every additional build, making that more and more sustainable. On the flip side, applying capabilities like AI towards such optimization problems like materials efficiency, energy efficiency, et cetera, is a really interesting and exciting concept. We heard it on main stage. They were doing some simulation in Forma, and our live demoer said, and we can do total carbon here as well.
Yeah, by the way.
Yeah, which is very exciting.
No big deal.
No big deal. But what I'll say is I'm in a long-standing discussion. One of my ChatGPT threads is all about, where's this going to net out? While ChatGPT is incentivized to tell me what I want to hear as a sustainability lead for a technology company, I push it really hard. And if we do this right, it can net positively for the planet. So I'm generally speaking very excited about this. We have to design and build and apply AI with intention.
Absolutely.
I appreciate that baseline so much, because like I've come into a lot of my early AI conversations with a bit of anxiety in the back of my head, where I'm just like, okay, like, how do we overcome this? And so, like, we have to be deliberate. I always tell people there's a swear jar on my desk because I say intentional all the time, but we have to be really deliberate today. But it is really exciting that this technology is another lens that we get to apply to get further gains and make more improvements, and have access to insights and a level of data analysis that simply hasn't been possible before, because whether it was somebody wasn't able to do it at the scale because they're a human, or alternatively access to the data in a way that we just traditionally have not had. All of these things come together in a way where, if we have a more sustainable future, that's great. I'm excited. You're encouraging me right now, to say the least.
Great.
Allie, I think we can dig into the data centers a little bit more here.
Yeah,
and I want to
sure.
hear a bit more about what both of you are doing at Autodesk University this year. And Allie, I know you're on a panel specifically tied to data centers. Can you tell me more about that? What are you hearing from the folks on the panel, and how's that conversation going?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, as Joe just mentioned, sort of the rapid expansion and acceleration of AI is dependent as well on the infrastructure behind it. So data centers as a marketplace, mission critical as a marketplace around the globe, is growing very fast. And there are a tremendous amount of people, leaders in the space, in the built environment, that are trying to apply their knowledge and expertise in order to support it in the right way. What is also encouraging, however, is that a lot of these players are thinking about sustainability because they are so water intensive, energy intensive on the grid, intensive in terms of the land use and the footprint that's required in order to support them. And they have a direct impact on the social and community around them. So these are the things that are top of mind for co-location owners and hyperscalers, because when they make a choice about when they're going to go, where they're going to go, and how they're going to build it, they know that they have to have these things figured out ahead of time. So on the panel tomorrow, we actually have a representative from Start Campus, who's an owner-operator, co-location data center provider in Portugal, and they have built the most sustainable data center in Portugal.
Wow.
And they're applying very innovative technology in order to maintain that status. One of the super interesting things about Start Campus is that they happen to be a startup in and of themselves. And they came at this problem straight away as saying, we want to be sustainable. We want to differentiate. We want to make sure that what we're providing is a solution to our customers that is as sustainable as possible so that we have a better impact on the world as a part of it. One of the interesting things that they're doing is they actually have pioneered a seawater cooling technology. So we'll hear more about that tomorrow because new technologies in terms of how we cool and operate a data center are a big part of that conversation. In addition to Start Campus, we also have a representative from Ramble. They are doing a lot in the space of biodiversity. So how we manage the land conservation and how we take into account wetlands as well as, just nature in and of itself, the flora and fauna around us as it impacts in the infrastructures, big part of their conversation. And then we have a CRH, who are a building products manufacturer. They are thinking about all the components and all of the value chain and supply chain that goes into making the pieces of those data centers come to life. And then we have a representative from John Sisk and Sons, who is a data center builder in and of themselves. And together, it's going to be a very dynamic conversation. Big through line for all of this is collaboration. And we've heard a lot from customers in this space that in order to really advance the role of data center design and construction and to do it well and to do it sustainably, we have to work closer together. We have to do more connected workflows. We have to share data and we have to optimize together in order to get to these things like speed, scale, quality, and sustainability. So those are some of the things you're going to hear tomorrow. The conversation is just beginning around this, and I think we're going to hear a lot more in the next few years about how do we continue to improve these processes together.
Well, you've got the deck stacked as far as folks
Oh my God, yes.
different perspectives, which
Absolutely.
is cool. And it comes back to what Joe just said as far as the multiple trillion dollars number of what we're going to be spending on this infrastructure. So I hope folks are having an opportunity to tune into that session tomorrow and really check out what's coming because we have to be effective. We have to be efficient. This is not just a dollar spend. It's a tremendous resource spend along with it. And I think we're setting ourselves up to be successful by bringing folks like that together.
A big part of the conversation as well, in addition to the technology side, optimization and collaboration, is repeatability. How do we continue to build processes and workflows so that we can scale the way that we work in repeatable fashion, pulling upon the lessons that we build upon together every time we build a new data center. I heard from a customer yesterday that, the technology is moving so fast, even within the racks themselves, right? The actual technology, the data center pieces, the computers that go into the server room itself, is that oftentimes we find that some of our designers and builders are literally building a quote unquote tent before they're actually able to build the building around the servers themselves because the capacity is changing all the time.
That's wild.
So they have to have flexibility and agility as a part of their conversation, in addition to scalability and repeatability.
Which isn't necessarily the baseline for most construction projects.
Absolutely not. No. Normally you're like, okay, great. I've got something to build on. I know what I'm doing and let's go. But in this case, those parameters can be changing last minute and that has a major impact on how you work.
Yeah, that's tough.
To level set for the numbers, right now, the best guess is that data center cloud infrastructure is about 3% of total global greenhouse gas emissions in any given year. That number is set to grow to 6 to 8% by the end of this decade, right? Based on baseline alone. And what we're seeing is that folks are building so fast that it's a bit of a land grab. However, I think about this a little bit like the rise of social media. We didn't really realize the ills of the rise of social media. Like now we're taking away phones from kids. We didn't really,
You go, this isn't going so well anymore.
Landlines are back, guys. Just right, yeah.
And I think that we've internalized some of those lessons from a technology perspective and are trying to get out ahead of them. So I'll just note the big hyperscalers like Microsoft and Amazon are some of the biggest purchasers of renewable energy on the planet. Microsoft just paid to have 3 Mile Island essentially turned back on because it helps them meet their renewable goals, right? So we're kind of like pulling rabbits out of hats in terms of thinking about how do we deliver this new future in a much more sustainable way. And I think we get really creative. That to me gives me a lot of excitement around how we approach the future relative to this. The last thing I'll say about this is it's also going so fast. And because of the fact that a data center is a ship of Theseus, every few years, it's just like fully replaced, that there's a big discussion around componentization of everything. So like, how do we just make those racks just like standard so that we're
Yep.
replacing the GPUs every few years and it's easy? And that in and of itself is an efficiency play, but has this knock-on sustainability effects.
Absolutely. It's a major industrialized construction modularization conversation right now, too.
I couldn't imagine walking in and going, I need to replace the GPUs in every single server that is in this building. And it's going to be tens of thousands in that moment. Like, how do you do that effectively? How do you make sure you're not taking the servers down for too long and managing all of the load?
Not to mention all the MEP and all the cooling and all of the things that are feeding into it.
And all the people that you need to go in there and actually achieve that. That's not just, I hope that it's not just one guy who goes down and goes, all right, like, here we go. We're going to swap all these out.
It's Bill. Bill does it.
Sorry, Bill. Good luck. Well, Joe, I want to get back to the creative moment that you just mentioned a second ago. Can you tell me a bit more about the mission and the goals of your own sustainability team? Because I know we do some really creative and interesting and what I would consider cutting edge sustainability work as a company. And I think it'd be remiss not to talk a little bit about it.
When I was entering this role at Autodesk, I started looking at companies that were more mature than us. And those tended to be in Europe because sustainability is kind of part of the ether over there. And it's just part of the regulatory environment in which they exist. And so I had a bunch of conversations with a number of companies that had kind of been through that maturity curve already. And where we landed on was, from a sustainability perspective, it's likely to be an aspect of everybody's job in some way. So just as all of us kind of know how to use spreadsheets, but we're not accountants, everybody's going to have to kind of know their way around a carbon budget in some way in the future, right? And so we've structured our team, for all intents and purposes, as a sustainability business partner to the rest of the business. So everybody who works on my team, generally speaking, has two expertise areas, if you will. Standard is sustainability, just kind of understanding the sustainability space overall. And then the other is functional expertise, right? And so we've got folks that are supporting the G&A functions in terms of how we report our sustainability goals, the mandatory requirements associated with carbon emissions and climate risk. We support those functions to do that. Likewise, we support the product teams who want to embed sustainability features, functionality, capabilities. We bring that sustainability expertise. We don't own product roadmap. We don't own quota. We don't own reporting requirements, right? But we are here to support all of that throughout the business. And most recently, Allie, we're incredibly lucky to have Allie join our team to help us grow out our function for go-to-market with sustainability, because increasingly our customers are demanding this. The products are in a place where we feel good about getting them out into our customers' hands. And so Allie's driving our go-to-market motions to support the both sales, customer success, et cetera, in terms of delivery of sustainability into our customers' hands. So that's how we see ourselves. We're 4 years into this journey. It's going very well. And we stand on the shoulders of giants of folks who have been here before. Yeah.
And Allie, I'd love it if you could tell me a bit more about how your role shakes out in the relationships you build with all these different teams.
Yeah, absolutely. I've been very lucky to build a lot of wonderful relationships at Autodesk and brought a lot of my industry relationships forward as well as a part of this new role. And we're a new growth strategy and customer engagement team that's really focused on deep customer listening and deep customer engagement that allows us to understand what's keeping people up at night in terms of the sustainability questions, and what are we really helping them to achieve? How can we explore ways and unlock new ways of working together that's going to help them achieve those sustainable outcomes? Part of our team's job is to support those customer-facing teams. If folks have a CSM or if they've got an account manager, we're right behind them as business partners to make sure that they have the latest and greatest insights about what's happening in the marketplace and also what those customers are really needing and asking for, so that we can make sure that we're serving those things up and be able to be those good business partners as well as good industry leaders to the customers. We also directly connect to industry trade organizations. So we have a deep relationship with the World Business Council for Sustainable Development, WBCSD. We actually, convene conversations with leaders in this space, helping to facilitate collaboration, sharing of best practices. In fact, we just launched, I believe it's coming out this week, a new white paper with the WBCSD and 6 other leaders in this space. AECOM, SOM, Arcadis, Arup, Ramble, and Foster & Partners, I believe, are all part of this study to talk about the role of BIM and carbon data and how do we make sense of this world, right? How do we make sense of taking all that data together and using the technology to see sustainable outcomes through? So we are the center point of those conversations, right? Helping to bring those folks together, and we get to facilitate and support. And then we take those insights and we say, okay, great. What can we do? And how do we serve it up in the right way to our solutions organization who can support the broader conversation on the product strategy? So on the go-to-market side, from sales, success, and product and marketing, we work very closely in tandem together to make sure that sustainability becomes everyday part of the lexicon for Autodesk, and so that customers can call into us and know that we're there to support them and their needs.
Well, first off, I'll make sure I get the link to that paper that you're speaking
Yes,
about.
absolutely.
We'll include it in the show notes. So if anybody out there is listening and they'd like to check that out, we'll make sure that's available.
Yeah.
But I appreciate this 360 look here, because from what Joe shared as far as just the main company mission and how we've gotten here and the work that you're doing, like, we're covering all of our bases. And I think it's important as we go and speak to customers and really entrench ourselves in the sustainability narrative, we're living what we're speaking about. And I think that's incredibly important.
Yeah,
So.
I think that's one of the things that's unique about how Autodesk approaches sustainability, and what drew me to what we're doing here today is because it's not just about our own sustainability footprint, which is incredibly important because we have our own operations we need to look at, but also how can we learn from our best practices, how can we learn from the industry, and how can we put forward new ideas, new innovations, new ways of working directly with the customers and industries that we serve.
And to build on that very quickly, I just want to note, it's a fundamental shift, I would say, from the last few years, going from sustainability, we need to do it, it's a necessary requirement, like it's a good thing to do. And the long term, if society's doing well, our businesses will do well, to the actual business case, to saying, okay, our industries are being regulated to do this. It costs money. And there are knock-on benefits for efficiency. When you start to look at whole life of an asset, there are significant efficiencies to be gained from a sustainability approach. We're going through a pretty fundamental shift here, which is to say, sustainability is nice, to say sustainability is going to actually make us money. And there is business value to be had here. I think Allie is, to a certain extent, representative of that. I also want to note here really quickly that from an Autodesk perspective, we walk the walk in addition to talking the talk with our customers.
Yep.
And as a technology company, we have a relatively light footprint from a carbon perspective. It's publicly disclosed. We've got about 150,000 metric tons that we've got to address. All of our initiatives to address that take into account our value chain and our customers, right? So we're thinking about, okay, how do we affect the cost curve for some of these technologies to be able to allow others to play in this market, whether it's carbon removals or sustainable aviation fuel or purchase power agreements. It really is a customer play and an industry play overall.
I love that because it really just entrenches the value of this. But I have to say, the dollar value of benefit from that does help as far as selling the narrative. Like, I don't mean to be flippant about it, but it's easier to push that conversation forward for organizations, because I've heard so many friends in pre-con where they go, we had all these great ideas to be tied to this, lead building requirement or using innovative materials. And the folks in that phase, when they bring the number to the customer and they go, well, we don't want to pay for that because it costs 1.2% more to build our building. And it's just like, dang it. Look at it in 60 years and that 1.2% doesn't matter anymore, but everybody's decoupled and detached. And so I think we're really pushing this narrative forward. And I think there's a lot of room to be optimistic from everything you've shared today. And I'm so grateful for that. So I've got one final question for you, and I'm going to give it to Joe first, because Allie, I've asked you this one a few times, so I'll give you a second to think about a new answer for this. But Joe, what is one tool that you use on every project, regardless of what you're working on?
So I live in an old house in Berkeley. I'm somewhat handy. I like to be handy. I have multiple tape measures, but I have one special one that I keep hidden from everybody else. My kids love playing with the tape measure. My wife will walk around with it and use it and put it somewhere. I have a special hidden tape measure in my house. That said, increasingly, ChatGPT is my tool of choice as I say, wait, how do I do this? I'm currently amidst restoring a 1965 Panasonic record player receiver cabinet. And ChatGPT is my tool of choice to help me do so. So sorry, I squeezed 2 in there.
Yeah, 2 is okay. I like the tape measure answer. I think I have about 5 stashed around my house. The one that's in my desk is actually my grandfather's. And so it doesn't have a lock on it, but it's this really old school heavy duty one. I've looked and it looks like it's a little bit different in measurement from my newer one. So I don't do anything very specific with it,
Yes.
but it also weighs a ton. So it's a good weapon if somebody breaks into my house. So I'm good. All right, Allie.
Yeah, I've said this in the past, but I don't go anywhere without a pen. And I think that's still my number one, but increasingly also ChatGPT. And I was wondering if Joe was going to say that. So
Yes.
Chatty P is my friend right now, because a great soundboard for a little bit of everything right now.
It is. I mean, occasionally I'll float something in there and I'm like, I don't really like the answer that it's given me here. It says more about the tool, I'm going to say, than myself.
Sure.
I'm going to leave it there.
Yeah.
But either way, I am guilty of using all of these things myself. And like I said, I've got tape measures scattered throughout my house, partly because I lose them because I have ADHD. So what can you do? But both of you, I have to say, again, thank you so much for taking some time out of your busy schedule. I know AU is chaos, and I am very thankful to sit down and enjoy this conversation. For everybody out there listening, if you're wondering who the heck is this guy with the pink shoes yelling into microphones, I am your host, Eric Thomas. This is the Digital Builder Podcast. If you are curious and like to check out the show, head over to YouTube. We are a video first show, but of course we are in Spotify, Apple Podcasts, all the favorite players. If you have a question for me, hit me up on LinkedIn. I'm not hard to find. And until next time, goodbye.